Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnu Pada Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvikesha Shunya Pari Pastutyade Sharparine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vastutyade Shartarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Jaya Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada. Shri Srimad Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. The 150th appearance day of Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Srimad Gaura Premi Devi Dasi Hari Hari Bol. So again, Hare Krishna to everybody for joining us this evening. And we said we're dedicating this program and the program for the next few weeks to His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. Tomorrow is the 150th anniversary of his appearance, and we are grateful to him for making sure that the teachings of Lord Caitanya were not only kept alive and understood in the correct context in India, but also throughout the world. So we offer our prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manohishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pucharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastrati Deshudarini. So Srila Prabhupada has two pranam mantras, the two that we just, the last two that we just heard, and there are four pranam mantras for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Just put up his image for us to offer this to him. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Namine Shivar Shivanavi Devi Dayata Kripapte Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhura Jala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karana Shakti Vigrahaya Namosate Namaste Gauravani Shimurte Dinatarine Rupanuga Virutta Pasadanta Dvanta Harine. So today we are discussing the fourth and the final part of chapter 26 of the Teachings of Lord Caitanya. This book, Teachings of Lord Caitanya, is by Srila Prabhupada, and it's based on the biography of Lord Caitanya called the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That biography was written by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So this chapter 26 is called the Bhattacharya is Converted, and it refers to the great scholar Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya being converted from an impersonalist philosophy to Bhakti Yoga by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's powerful and authoritative arguments on scripture. So I pray for all your blessings to do justice to this class, so we can get a better understanding of the teachings and the activities of Lord Chaitanya, so that we can serve him better. Before we begin proper, we'll also read another verse, which is an invocation prayer from the first chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's verse 18. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinoda. So we'll start reading. The Lord then requested the Bhattacharya to go see Jagannath in the temple, and the Bhattacharya started out for the temple, accompanied by Jagadananda Pandit, Jagadananda and Damodar, two principal associates of Lord Caitanya. After seeing Jagannath, the Bhattacharya returned home, bringing with him much prasadam purchased from the temple. He sent all this prasadam to Lord Caitanya through his Brahmana servant. So these wonderful pastimes of the Lord are happening in Jagannath Puri. Lord Caitanya went to Jagannath Puri after he took sannyas, and this is where he encountered the Bhattacharya. Actually, the Bhattacharya is one of the first persons that he encountered in Jagannath Puri. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the temple of Lord Jagannath for the first time, he actually he fainted in ecstasy, and the Bhattacharya was the one who actually rescued him from being thrown out by the guards, and then took the Lord to his own home, and from there the pastimes unfolded that the Bhattacharya wanted to teach the Lord about Vedanta from an impersonalist perspective, and Lord Chaitanya allowed him to teach for 7 days. And the Bhattacharya taught the Lord for 7 days. And the Lord just kept silent. And at the end, when the Bhattacharya asked him, well, why don't you ask any questions? Then this discussion ensued where Lord Chaitanya said, there's nothing wrong with the Vedanta. The problem is your explanations. They're all coming from an impersonalist perspective. So when the Bhattacharya was converted, then Lord Chaitanya sent him to see Lord Jagannath. And it's a very interesting thing because the Bhattacharya probably saw Lord Jagannath many times. But he, of course, was looking at the Lord as an impersonalist. Now he was going as a Vaishnava, as someone who had accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who would also therefore accept Lord Jagannath's form as transcendental, not as a product of Maya. The Mayavadis accept the form of the Lord as Maya, as an illusion. So now we could say that there's different eyes that the Bhattacharya was going to be looking at the Lord with. And in the same way, he was going to be regarding the Lord's prasadam in a different way, because the Lord's prasadam is non-different from him. Right? And if we consider everything an illusion, then we consider his prasadam an illusion as well. But the Bhattacharya was not seeing it like that anymore. So he bought some of Lord Jagannath's prasadam and he sent it for Lord Chaitanya, right? This nice exchange. So that's the wonderful feature of Jagannath Puri. And Jagannath Puri is one of the three principal abodes of the Lord, right? Especially for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the Vaishnavas who follow in the tradition of Lord Chaitanya. The other two are Vrindavan and Mayapur. So it's said that if you you want to develop love for the Lord, that you do so through the dust of Vrindavan, through chanting in Mayapur, or through eating or honoring prasadam in Jagannath Puri. So therefore, this prasadam of Jagannath Puri is very famous. Right? And lucky for everybody, there's so much of it and it's available for purchasing. So this is what the Bhattacharya did. So we said we're going to have a little discussion on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And it's nice that we're talking about Jagannath Puri because this is the place that he took his appearance. And it's very interesting, actually, how it occurred. So we'll just, again, put up his glorious image so we can meditate on him and his pastimes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared in Jagannath Puri. He was the fourth son of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was an acharya in our line who particularly took up the message of Lord Chaitanya. And although the message was being practiced by all the Vaishnavas who had come after Lord Chaitanya, but not everyone was actually focusing on how this message would be spread, right, beyond Bengal, but also throughout the world. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was the one we could say that actually initiated that particular mission of spreading the teachings of Lord Caitanya everywhere. So Prabhupada therefore says, and we see in the Bhagavad Gita, in the images that we have of the acharyas, that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's known as the pioneer of the program to bless the entire world with Krishna consciousness. So we'll find that under the image of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was concerned because other than him, there wasn't anyone else who he could see that would also take this message up seriously. Right? In particular, he wanted a successor. He wanted somebody who would be able to take this message further in the next generation. So he prayed to the Lord. Right? And it is said that he prayed for a ray of Vishnu, that is an empowered incarnation of the Lord himself. Because of course, when one is empowered with the Lord's own powers, then one is able to do extraordinary things, particularly in spreading this movement in this age of Kali, which is particularly rife with bad qualities, and people have no attraction or interest in devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the third canto that that there are generally two groups of devotees. They're devotees who are actually, they have a mission to deliver others. That's the one group. And the other group is just, well, they're at least able to deliver themselves, which is very good. They're able to engage nicely in devotional service, and they can deliver, of course, their children or their dependents. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he belonged to the first group, right? Very rare. Those souls who are dedicated to delivering others, right, who have the power to do that. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, was a magistrate. And when he was transferred for work to Jagannath Puri, Lord Jagannath actually came into his dreams and spoke to him. And this is quite lovely, the interaction. Because Lord Jagannath says to him, I didn't bring you to Puri to execute legal matters, but to establish Vaishnav Siddhanta. Isn't that it's a little funny as well. And then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually responded in the dream. At the time, he was about 42 years old, it says, according to these pastimes. Your teachings have been significantly depreciated. Right? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling Lord Jagannath, your teachings have been, well, they're not appreciated anymore by the people. And I lack the power to restore them. Right? So this is very interesting that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that he did not have the power, the mandate, we could say, to revive these teachings. So it's not to say that all the acharyas are going out there trying to be the one. They understand that the Lord has his purposes. And in his time and with his designated representative, these teachings will be revived. So it's not like everybody is trying to achieve the glory, let's put it that way. It doesn't actually work that way. This must go according to the Lord's plan because it's his message. And he'll decide who it is that will be the one to spread it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not trying to be the one. He wasn't trying to take that role, but he wanted that personality to appear so that the teachings would be safely passed on to him and then to others from there. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur then continues, much of my life has passed and I'm otherwise engaged. So please send somebody from your personal staff so that I can start this movement. Right? That's very nice, from your personal staff. So Lord Jagannath, then he told Bhaktivinoda Thakur to pray for an assistant to the deity of the goddess Bimala Devi. So Bimala Devi is a name of Maya Devi, right? The external energy of the Lord. But actually we know that the external energy of the Lord is an expansion of Lakshmi Devi, of the internal energy. And in Jagannath Puri, Lakshmi Devi presides as the consort of Jagannath. So Bimala is the external manifestation of Lakshmi. So the Bimala Devi temple is actually located within the Jagannath temple complex. And it's said that there isn't a separate offering that's made for her. What she eats or what she honors is the direct remnants of Lord Jagannath's prasadam. So when Lord Jagannath's prasadam is taken out after he has partaken of it, it's then offered to Bimala Devi. This is what she takes, and then afterwards it's distributed to everyone else. And there's a pastime of why this happens. We won't discuss it today because it's we're already, I think, going to go a bit over time with these discussions, but we can maybe put it up on the group. So we'll just say that because of this this guidance from Lord Jagannath, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he prayed to Bimala Devi for one of the Lord's associates to come. And then when his wife delivered this child, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur understood that, this child actually came from these prayers being answered. And therefore he called the child Bimala Prasad. Right? Bimala Prasad means the mercy of the transcendental potency of Lord Jagannath. Right? Srimati Bimala Devi. Prasad is mercy. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he appeared on the 6th of February, 1874, near a very famous holy place in Jagannath Puri called the Jagannath Vallabh Gardens. This is a place that's very dear to Lord Jagannath because a lot of the fruits and flowers from there are offered to him. And it's also a place of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes when he lived in Jagannath Puri. Right? He would go there many times. Very wonderful things happened there. So how did Bhaktivinoda Thakur know that this was a divine child? The umbilical cord of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it was wrapped around his neck like how a Brahman thread is wrapped. Very unusual occurrence. And the astrologer that calculated his chart said that this was actually a great personality who would be world famous. As we know, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is now known across the world. And he would be a brilliant teacher of life's ultimate goal. It's quite a wonderful horoscope. And then to further confirm it, at 6 months, the Rath Yatra cart stopped outside Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home, which is currently on the route of the Jagannath Rath Yatra. the cart stopped and wouldn't move. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he called his wife to bring the child for darshan. And of course, he was the magistrate, so these privileges were afforded to him. So she took the 6-month-old Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bimala Prasad. She took him in front of the Jagannath, and then the garland from the Lord actually fell over Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, just fell from the deity onto him. And this, of course, again was more evidence that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the answer to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers. Then usually during the grain eating ceremony, when the child has the first grains, there's one aspect where the child is offered the holy book Srimad Bhagavatam or coins, and this kind of gives one an idea of whether the child is going to be more inclined towards material or spiritual pursuits. And of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, even as a baby, he crawled towards the Bhagavatam and embraced it. And there were some other interesting incidences from his youth. We may be aware of the pastime with the mangles. When he was a little child, he maybe said 3 or 4 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought home mangles, and innocently he picked up one and said, "This is mine." And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was very grave and reminded him that before anything is eaten, it must be offered to the Lord first. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur thought himself to be a great offender that he wanted to eat something before the Lord had had it. And he took a vow, even as a child. And this is so extraordinary. Even as a child, he took a vow that that he would not eat mangoes again. And that was a vow he upheld through the rest of his life. And Srila Prabhupada says this is an indication of his status as an acharya, teaching us by example to respect the Lord as the enjoyer of everything. So at 7 years old, he was given a kurma deity by his father. The deity was unearthed when his father was excavating an area in, I think, Calcutta. And he started worshipping this deity even from the age of 7 years old. And this is how his father could perceive how advanced a child he was. He had already been hearing Krishna Katha throughout his life very attentively. And he had memorized Bhagavad Gita and could explain the verses with his photographic memory at the age of 7. So definitely he was very qualified to worship this deity of Kurma. By 11 years old, he was already being trained in publishing and proofreading of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's printing press, where he printed spiritual literature. He had also toured the places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And in school, he was exceptional in mathematics and astrology. And his teachers were very amazed. He could master any subject. He was very talented, deeply intelligent. His memory was incredible. And nobody could debate with him. On top of that, he was of an extremely moral nature and very, very devoted. And so one of the unusual aspects of his talent, he actually developed a new method of shorthand called it Bikto. And his particular aptitude for maths and astrology, actually, it earned him the name Sri Siddhanta Saraswati. Even at such a young age, he was respected as one who knew the Siddhanta. And this title is quite a respected one. At 13 years, right, he was given Tulsi beads for Tulsi chanting beads. His father taught him to chant japa, and he also learned the Nrsimha mantras. And he was only associating, even at such a young age, with those who were interested in spiritual life. He was so strict that he formed an assembly of associates. They called the August Assembly. And those persons would have to take the vow of celibacy in order to understand spiritual teachings. So after he finished school, he went to Sanskrit college, but he was doing so well that he realized that he would have to enter into family life probably. And therefore he left college. And he was just thinking to find some pious work so he could really focus on devotional service. Pious work like the work of a Brahmin. At the same time, he was offered the chair at the University of Calcutta in astronomy, but for the same reasons that he left college, he declined it. He wanted to focus on devotional service. Because of his his expertise in astrology and astronomy, though, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he was another acharya of the time. He asked Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to draw up a Vaishnava calendar, right? The kind of calendar that we have to this day that has helped us know when all the appearance and disappearance day of great personalities are, when the Vaishnava festivals and observances are held. Then he, even at his young age, he decided to just take up strict renunciation. He established a very simple bhajan kutir in Jagannath Puri, and he was eating very simply, living in very bare circumstances, going on parikrama and writing. So his father advised him to take initiation, and there was a very extraordinary personality at the time, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who was also present, taking instructions or listening to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he didn't want to accept any disciples out of humility. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would repeatedly ask Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj to initiate him, until finally Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he brushed him off many times. Eventually he told him no straight up. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went home and told his father, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that if you don't get initiation from him, then don't come home. This is how determined Bhaktivinoda Thakur was to have Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur take initiation from Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. So then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually met Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. It's quite a wonderful person. He met him over a bridge and told him that he would kill himself actually if he wasn't accepted. And then Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj understood how serious Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was, and he initiated him. So this was all a test. The Babaji Maharaj was testing Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur because Saraswati Thakur was so elevated, he was so intelligent, he was so talented. Surely these things would be affecting him and he would not be very humble. But indeed, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very humble. He didn't consider that his guru, Babaji Maharaj, was actually illiterate, couldn't even write his own name. He still understood that despite that external circumstance, that Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj was very spiritually elevated. So after he was initiated, he went to Mayapur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he actually started learning more about the sannyas order, because he reintroduced the sannyas order into the Vaishnava line. Mostly everyone had been taking the Babaji ashram when they wanted to become renounced, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took sannyas and then introduced sannyas with his disciples, and this is what passed on to Srila Prabhupada in our ISKCON movement. So at that time, he was about 31 years old, and he decided to chant 1 billion names of Krishna. He was preparing himself for his great mission. So even though he was a pure devotee, he was a brilliant personality, he was a strict moralist, still he set the example that one must become qualified in order to be a teacher. So he of the holy name. So he himself sat and chanted 1 billion names of the Lord. He was chanting about 300,000 names over 9 years, living in a hut, chanting morning and night, and preaching in the area of Mayapur called Yoga Peeth, where Lord Caitanya appeared. So once he had completed this, he started by establishing Daivi Varanashram. It means a Varanashram, or a social structure where Krishna is at the center. So this was his goal. And to that aim, he was teaching, he was preaching, and he was also writing articles, right, on all the studies of scripture that he was undertaking. Around that time, he actually initiated his first disciple. In 1911 was the famous debate of the Brahmanas versus the Vaishnavas, right? And this is where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established the superiority of a Vaishnava over a Brahmana with such conclusive arguments in such an extraordinary way that the entire crowd actually became converted. They were clamoring to touch his feet, and it was actually going to become a stampede. So the security guards actually took him away, and they forced him to wash his feet with a big bath of water. He wouldn't allow anyone to touch his feet, or he was so humble that when someone offered obeisances to him, he would offer obeisances back. And Srila Prabhupada also remembers this, that when he would offer his obeisances to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say in return, Dasos me, that I am your servant. So he wouldn't want that water to go to the crowd, but the security said that it's going to become crazy. They're actually going to hurt you. So they forcibly took the water from his feet and they distributed it among the people who became pacified. So this essay that he wrote and presented there, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur heard it, he exclaimed, Saraswati, truly, truly Saraswati. Truly he is the Acharya's son illuminating the face of the Vaishnava world. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he engaged more in establishing the Vaishnava Siddhantas across Bengal in debates and conferences, right, including establishing the importance of the name of Lord Caitanya, the authenticity of the name of Lord Caitanya, Gaura in the Gayatri Mantra, as well as in the Vedas, as well as Lord Caitanya as God. And he was, of course, engaging in parikrama. He established a printing press, and preaching was his main focus. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj, they passed away a few years after that. And he was feeling a little bit lost, a little discouraged. So we read from a past time. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was feeling very discouraged in the absence of Srila Thakur Mahasaya and Srila Babaji Maharaj. Right? That's his father and his guru. Seeing the helpless condition of the spiritual section of the country and the propaganda of the Sahajiyas or imitators, he was thinking, how will I fulfill the desire of my spiritual masters? How will I be able to preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? I do not have enough money or manpower, nor do I have any knowledge or talent that would enchant the public. I have no material skill or wealth. How can this great task be performed by me? I won't be able to preach the message of my spiritual masters. Thinking all this, Srila Prabhupada, this is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, displayed his pastime of gloom and depression. Then one night he saw in a visionary trance that Lord Gaurasundar had arrived from the east side of the Yogapeeth temple with his associates. Amid the sound of Sankirtan, he was ascending to his bedside. With him were the 6 Goswamis, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Srila Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj were also present in their effulgent transcendental forms. Addressing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada directly, they said, why are you in such a state of anxiety? Begin your task of establishing pure religion. Everywhere preach the message of Sri Gaura and spread the service of the holy name, abode and desire of Sri Gaura. We are always ready to help you, being eternally present with you. In your mission of establishing pure devotional service, you will always receive our help. Behind you, innumerable people, unlimited wealth, and extraordinary scholarship are waiting to help you. Whatever you need at any time will immediately appear to serve your mission of pure devotion. With full enthusiasm, proceed with your preaching of the message of pure devotion as it was preached by Sriman Mahaprabhu. No material problems can impede you. We are always with you. The next morning, Srila Prabhupada, that's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, told us about this visionary trance with great ecstasy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki. So this is, we could say, part 1 of our glorification of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It's pretty much only some of his pastimes, maybe divided into, probably going to divide it into maybe 4 sections. I think they might be able to cover as many as possible in that time in the next few weeks, so that we can actually glorify this wonderful personality and appreciate everything he's done for us by his preaching. So we'll continue now reading some of the teachings of Lord Caitanya. We said that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he had sent the prasadam of Lord Jagannath to Lord Caitanya, and he also sent something else that was very special. The Bhattacharya also dispatched 2 verses written on a palm leaf and requested Jagadananda to do him a favor by delivering them to the Lord. Thus, Lord Caitanya was offered the prasadam and the verses on the palm leaf. But before reaching the Lord, Mukunda Datta, who had also undertaken the delivery of the verses, had copied the verses into his book. When Lord Caitanya read the verses on the palm leaf, he tore it to pieces, for he never liked to be praised by anyone. The verses only survived because they had been copied by Mukunda Datta. So this is very instructive pastime. It's not that the Lord had any problem with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya appreciating him, because the Bhattacharya was doing this after the Lord converted him to the correct understanding of God. But the Lord wanted to discourage that people imitate him. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come as a devotee. He wanted us to imitate him as a devotee. If Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu now also accepted the role of God, then people, being ordinary persons or devotees, could also state that they were God at the same time. So we could see the problem with that. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya, he just took this role of devotee only, not as God. So these verses were praising him as God, and therefore he tore them up. He didn't want them to come into the hands of the ordinary public. So only by the mercy of Mukunda Datta do we actually have access to these verses. But this is because we received them through the guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, that we have the right understanding that we must be devotees of the Lord. We can never be the Lord. No ordinary person can do that. Now we may also question that Lord Chaitanya sometimes showed the forms of God. He showed himself to be Radha and Krishna. To Ramananda Rai, he showed himself to be Sri Sadbhuj, to Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Right? We discussed this last week or the week before, that he showed a six-armed form. He also showed himself to be Lord Varahadev, Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. He manifested the form of himself as Ram and his associates. So why did he do that at the same time? Right? But he knew that even though he wanted people to follow his example as a devotee, there would still be those personalities claiming to be him, claiming to be God. So therefore he sets the criterion standard of God. If someone says that they are, then they should show the forms of the Lord. They should show the universal form like Lord Chaitanya did. They should show themselves to be Krishna, right? Bluish, blackish complexion, right? Beautiful features, effulgence, right? Flute playing, all of these things that ordinary persons obviously can't do. Right? So this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental intelligence in that way. The verses praise Lord Chaitanya as the supreme original personality of Godhead, declaring that he had descended as Lord Chaitanya to preach to the people in general about detachment, transcendental knowledge, and devotional service. Comparing Lord Chaitanya to an ocean of mercy, the Bhattacharya wrote, "Let me surrender unto that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." The Lord, seeing that devotional service was absent, descended in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach devotional service. Let us all surrender unto his lotus feet and learn from him what devotional service actually is. These two important verses are considered the most valuable jewels by the devotees of the Lord in disciplic succession, and by virtue of these famous verses, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has become known as the highest of devotees. So the Sanskrit text is not given in our book, Teachings of Lord Caitanya, but we found them, so we'll read them. Very beautiful verses. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartamekaha Purushaha Puranaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shariradhari Kripam Budhiryastam Tam Aham Prapadye. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ocean of transcendental mercy, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us detachment, real knowledge, and his own devotional service. Kalanashtam Bhakti Yogam Nijam Yaha Pradushkartum Krishna Chaitanya Nama Abhir Bhutastasya Padarvinde Gadham Gadam Liyate Chitta Bhringaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has taken the name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, has appeared to reveal the ancient system of devotional service to himself, which had almost been lost due to the influence of time. I pray that the honeybee of my mind will drink deeply of the nectar of his lotus feet. So both these verses are given in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well as the Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Thus, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was converted into one of the most important devotees of the Lord, and he had no other interest than to serve the Lord. His only concern was to think of Lord Chaitanya constantly, and this meditation and chanting became the main purpose of his life. So this is so extraordinary that by the power of bhakti, right, to the mercy of the Lord, and of course the desire of devotees, right, because Gopinathacharya was the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He also desired that the Bhattacharya would become a devotee. So these three things, the mercy of the Lord and the devotee and the power of bhakti, these all transformed a diehard impersonalist into a first-class devotee, and almost instantaneously. One day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came before the Lord, offered his respects, and began to recite one of Brahma's prayers from Srimad Bhagavatam. Right, so this verse is found in Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 8. The Bhattacharya recited as follows: Tatte nukampang su samikshimano bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam ridvagvapurбhir vidadhan namaste jivetayo bhakti pade sadaya bhak. So I'll explain why I was saying mukti instead of bhakti. In reciting the verse, the Bhattacharya changed the original word mukti, liberation, to bhakti, devotional service, in the last line. So the last line of this verse usually reads, Jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Mukti pade, right? Mukti pade. That's the original. But the Bhattacharya changed it to bhakti pade. Now, why did he do that? The meaning of the original verse is a person who devotes his mind, body, and speech to the service of the Lord, even though in the midst of a miserable life caused by his past misdeeds, he is assured of liberation. So this is the original translation, liberation, right? Mukti. That's actually what the verse is promising, mukti. So the Bhattacharya, though, he was against this word mukti being mentioned. Why was he feeling this way? Why have you changed the original verse? The Lord asks the Bhattacharya. The word is mukti, and you have changed it to bhakti. The Bhattacharya replied that mukti is not as valuable as bhakti, and that mukti is actually a sort of punishment for the pure devotee. For this reason, he changed the word mukti to bhakti. Okay, so how would we understand this? So just to give you a bit of it's a prelude to the next few paragraphs, because it'll make a lot of sense if we discuss it now. Basically, the Bhattacharya was saying that people who are in the impersonalist line, they take it that mukti or liberation is higher than bhakti. This we've discussed many times. Liberation is for them the highest goal. And what is that liberation? Because aren't we also aspiring for liberation? Well, technically, no. Right? Vaishnavas are not aspiring for liberation. We're not aspiring for anything for ourselves personally. Liberation, in essence, is thought of as something for ourselves, something that we want, a personal desire, a desire, therefore, that's coming from false ego. Liberation is thought of as something for us, whereas bhakti is something for Krishna. When you become a pure devotee of the Lord, you don't want anything for yourself. You don't care if you're not liberated. You just want to make Krishna happy. If Krishna wants to liberate you, he'll liberate you. If he wants you to stay in this material world, you'll stay here. If he wants you to go to hell, you'll go there. You understand? It's a very high level. It's very high level. And of course, at our level, it's not wrong to want to get out of this material world. We're encouraged to do that, to try to get out of this material world, because this is also what Krishna wants. But eventually we want to get to that highest level where we don't even want liberation. We want nothing from Krishna. Right? We want to get to that point that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays for in the last verse of the Shikshashtakam, that I only want your causes devotion. In the 7th or 6th verse, where he prays, I only want your constant devotional service. And in the last verse, he says, you can do whatever you want with me. And this is what we want. We want to get to that level. You can do whatever you want with me, whether you liberate me, whether you don't. But those who are impersonalists, they want this liberation. They want to get out of this material world, mukti. So because we take it that devotional service to Krishna is actually liberation, because by directly associating with Krishna, you are liberated in his devotional service. So this verse When it's talking about Mukti Pade, it's talking about that, getting that liberation of devotional service. So we could say that whether you say Mukti Pade or Bhakti Pade in this verse, it's the same. Right? I hope that's clear. But the Bhattacharya didn't like the idea that Mukti was there, that people may even think of it as meaning that Mukti, that which the impersonalists want. Right? For him, he wants to establish it's Bhakti only. Right? So therefore, he doesn't even want this word to come up, even in the context of devotional service to Krishna. He wants that Bhakti is made clear here to be, the goal for all devotees. So the Bhattacharya then began to explain his realization of bhakti. Anyone who does not accept the transcendental personality of Godhead and his transcendental form cannot know the absolute truth. One who does not understand the transcendental nature of the body of Krishna becomes his enemy and decries him or fights with him. So what he's trying to say is that if you're only thinking about liberation in the sense of trying to become one with Krishna, right, it means that you haven't accepted devotional service to the Lord because you haven't accepted the transcendental form of the Lord. And those people who think of Krishna as an ordinary person, who think that he's just another maybe exalted human being, but nothing more, perhaps just a very powerful kind of demigod, those people, they certainly don't want to accept bhakti. For them, it's only mukti, becoming one with the light, the effulgence. And because they think of Krishna as just an ordinary person, it's nothing for them to criticize him or become completely offensive towards him or even outwardly demoniac. This Krishna says as well, Avajananti ma mudha. Those who think of him as an ordinary person, they're fools, right? And they actually become demoniac. They may just oppose him like the demons do. This is the reality. The destination of such enemies is to merge into the Lord's Brahmani effulgence, right? They don't want service to him. So what destination do they get? They get the light. They get to merge into his effulgence. Such mukti or liberation is never desired by the Lord's devotees. So we don't want that because we can't serve Krishna when we're in that light, right? You don't have a personality to serve him with. One is basically in a very dormant state. We've said it's almost like being in a coma, being unconscious. You can't actually engage in any service to Krishna in that. Such mukti or liberation is never desired by the Lord's devotees. There are 5 kinds of liberation. Right? This getting into the effulgence is one of them. The other 4 are gaining admission to the planet where the Lord resides, being able to associate with the Lord, attaining a transcendental body like the Lord's, attaining opulence like the Lord's. A devotee has no particular interest in any of these types of liberation. He is simply satisfied by being engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So we said that if we get liberated, we may come to this point. We may live on the same planet as the Lord. We may have the same appearance as him, in particular if we go to the Vaikuntha planet. So there's nothing wrong with that per se. But desiring it over devotional service, that's where the problem comes in. We shouldn't desire anything over devotional service. Pure devotional service to the Lord with no motivation. So then if we desire that pure devotional service and we leave everything to Krishna and say, you decide what you want to do with me, and Krishna gives us one of these 4 kinds of liberation, we're okay with that because it has come from him. It's not that we had this desire for ourselves and then it was fulfilled. I hope that's clear. So there's nothing wrong with those personalities who attain to these 4 kinds of liberation. The problem is when one takes to the liberation of becoming one with the Lord's form. A devotee is especially averse to merging into the existence of the Lord and losing his individual identity. Indeed, a devotee considers oneness to the Lord to be worse than hell. Right? Because Sri Prabhupada says that even in hell, you can serve Krishna. Because devotional service is possible. But in the Brahmajyoti, in the light, if you go to the light and you become one with the light, you can't serve the Lord. And that's why it's like hell. Right? It's a little bit like what we were saying, like being locked in, being in this in the state where you actually can't do anything. You can't act, you can't think. It's a kind of bliss because you're free of the material sufferings, but it's not the bliss of associating with God, being his pure devotee. But he, that is a devotee, will accept one of the 4 kinds of liberation if it enables him to be engaged in the service of the Lord. So that's the condition, that we accept the other kinds of liberation when it engages us in the service of the Lord. Out of the 2 possibilities of merging in transcendence, the becoming one with the light, I didn't actually realize this till I read this paragraph. There's 2. Namely, becoming one with the impersonal Brahman effulgence and becoming one with the personality of Godhead. So we see that even Shishupal, he actually went into the form of the Lord. So this is possible, to actually become one with the form of the Lord, but not one as in one becomes God, but one actually just remains, we could say, in the region of the Lord's form and his effulgence. And it said that the latter is more abominable to the devotee, right? Certainly one is not going to be able to render service to the Lord, even though one is in the presence of the Lord. The devotee has no aspiration other than engaging in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So the service of the Lord is also a kind of liberation. It's called in Srimad Bhagavatam Vimukti. It's a special kind of liberation, Vimukti, special mukti. So Srila Dhruva Maharaj, he talks about this. Virakta Shendriya Pratau Bhakti Yogena Bhuyasa Tang Nirantara Bhavena Bhajetadha Vimuktaye. If one is serious about liberation, he must stick to the process of transcendental loving service, engaging 24 hours a day in the highest stage of ecstasy, and he must certainly be aloof from all kinds of sense gratification. So if you're engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, even though we don't get the other 5, we don't get to go to the effulgence, live on the same planet as the Lord, have his opulence, look like him, be an associate. If we're engaged in his service, we are liberated. And that liberation is called Vimukti, special kind of liberation. This is what the devotee wants to do. He wants to just render service to the Lord. I just want to serve you, Lord. I don't want anything from you. I don't even want my own liberation. This is that advanced level. So this is what Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, this is what he's getting to. On hearing this, Lord Chaitanya informed the Bhattacharya that there is another meaning to the word Mukti Pade. So if you're talking about Mukti in this verse that the Bhattacharya changed, it's not referring to those 5 types that the devotee doesn't want. It's referring to the liberation of devotional service, Vimukti. It's referring to that Mukti which is available to all of us who are serving the Lord. This is what that verse means. The word Mukti Pade directly indicates the personality of Godhead, right? Because the Lord himself is Mukunda, the giver of liberation. The personality of Godhead has innumerable liberated souls engaged in his transcendental loving service, and he is the ultimate resort of liberation. In either case, Krishna is the ultimate shelter. He is the ultimate shelter to those who want the 5 muktis or the ones who want the vimukti. It's all going to refer to him anyway, but in particular, this verse is referring to that vimukti. Despite this reading, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, I prefer Bhakti Pade to Mukti Pade. Although according to you, there are 2 meanings to the word Mukti Pade, still, because this word is ambiguous, right, the impersonalists can also take it to mean the 5 kinds of liberation, particularly the one of becoming one with the Lord. I prefer Bhakti Pade to Mukti Pade, because when one hears the word Mukti, he immediately thinks of becoming one with the Supreme. I therefore even hate to utter the word Mukti, but I am very enthusiastic to speak of Bhakti. At this, Lord Chaitanya laughed very loudly and embraced the Bhattacharya with great love. Right, so look at this advancement. You can't even tolerate a word that's like even remotely related to impersonalism. Thus, the Bhattacharya, who had taken pleasure in explaining Mayavad philosophy, became such a staunch devotee that he hated even to utter the word Mukti. This is possible only by the causeless mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya. The Lord is like a touchstone, for by his grace he can turn iron into gold. After the Bhattacharya's conversion, everyone marked a great change in him, and they concluded that this change was made possible only by the inconceivable power of Lord Chaitanya. Thus they took it for granted that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Lord Krishna himself. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached so strongly against Mayavad philosophy, giving everybody the opportunity to become pure devotees. Because if one gets to this impersonal effulgence, one misses a priceless opportunity to go beyond right, into the spiritual world and engage in devotional service, which is the highest happiness. So Lord Chaitanya was giving everybody that chance, and he had to debate with quite a few of the Mayavadis to do that, just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did. But this is out of their great compassion. So thank you all for your kind attention. This is the end of chapter 26. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai, Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya ki jai, Shri Srimati Gaura Hari ki jai. Are there any questions or comments or anything to clarify? It's very interesting. There was a bit of a funny pastime with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It said that he, of course, was very, very powerful debater against the Mayavadis. We also been hearing a lot that they are very powerful debaters. This is why Srila Prabhupada cautioned us not to actually try and take them on. Right? They could actually, they're just very persuasive. It's not that their philosophy is correct, but they could even convince us, because our knowledge of scripture is not as great as it should be, and our knowledge of Sanskrit is not as great as theirs, right? Even if they don't know the scripture very well, but their ability to twist the Sanskrit is actually quite it's quite profound. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, right? He was, of course, completely well versed in scripture, and he was an expert in Sanskrit, so he could certainly debate and pretty much smash them. And because he was doing this, they were so afraid of him that they would cross the road when they would see him. They didn't even want to come face to face with him in a social setting, because he might engage them in debate and defeat them. Of course, this is not for ordinary people to do. Right? We don't go around debating with people. This is not how we please the Lord. We go around spreading the holy names. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he's a pure devotee. He knows who to debate with and who not to debate with, because his intelligence is on that absolute level. So it's different for him. So he would challenge them as the Lord desired him to do, and he knew the Lord's desire, and he would do that. So one day he was traveling on a train with his disciples, and someone had given him mangoes. We remember that he didn't eat mangoes since his childhood, and his disciples, they were showing respect to him, so they weren't eating these mangoes either. So they're actually going a bit bad. So there was one Mayavadi scholar that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur he was debating with, and then eventually Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told him that, well, there's no difference between us and the Lord, right? There's no difference between anything, because this is basically what the Mayavadis say. We're just in a state of illusion because we think of ourselves as being out of the Brahman. We're all actually Brahman, and it's just a matter of waking up out of it. Then there's no difference between a ripe mango and a rotten mango. So he made the the Mayavadi sannyasi eat some rotten mangoes, right? To prove the point of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And after one or two, this sannyasi just couldn't do it anymore, and he just collapsed in surrender to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to his point. So that was something very humorous, but this is the amazing quality of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how he could get the mental points across. Okay. So if there's no comments or questions, then we'll try and sing one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's one of his more famous bhajans. I found quite a few, but this one is well known. It's actually a summary of the disciplic succession. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote, oh, sorry, not that. He wrote he actually recorded all the names of the Guru Parampara into one song. So I'll just go through it line by line. We won't repeat the second line because it's a bit long and we're going on a bit over time now. And then we'll read the translation at the end and see how wonderful the song actually is, that he's managed to actually bring all these names together. If we know a little bit about even English poetry, we'd see that to bring so many names together in one rhyming verse or rhyming verses is quite a challenge, right? And he was able to bring everyone's name together in about 9 verses. And we can see how expert he is, right? In the first line, the first line, every first line of the verse is divided in half, and the end word of the first half rhymes with the end word of the second half. It's the same for the third line, and the end of the second line and the fourth line rhyme as well. Right? His Sanskrit poetry is very, very expert, very beautiful. So this is called Krishna Hoite Chaturmukha, but the official name is the Guru Parampara because it actually is the record of all the names of the Guru Parampara. Krishna Hoite Chaturmukha, Hoi Krishna Sevan Mukha, Brahma Hoite Naradhe Ramati, Narada Hoite Vyasa, Madhva Kohe Vyasa Dasa, Purna Pragya Padmanabha Gati, Nrihari Madhava Bhamshe, Akshobhya Paramahamse, Shishya Boli Angikara Kore, Akshobhyera Shishya Jaya, Tirtha Name Parachaya, Tara Dasya Jnana Sindhu Dore, Taha Hoite Daya Nidhi, Tara Dasa Vidyanidhi, Rajendra Oilo Taha Harte, Tahara Kinkora Jaya, Dharma Name Parichaya, Parampara Jano Balumate, Jaya Dharma Dhasya Khyati, Shri Purushottam Jati, Tahate Brahmanya Tirtha Suri, Vyasa Tirtha Tara Dasa, Lakshmi Pati Vyasa Dasa, Tahate Madhavendra Puri, Madhavendra Puri Bara, Shishya Bara Shri Ishwara, Nityananda Shri Advaita Vibhu, Ishwara Puri Ke Dhanya, Koriven Shri Chaitanya, Jagat Guru Gaura Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu Shri Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Naye Anya, Rupanuga Janera Jivana, Vishwambhara Priyankara, Shri Swarup Dhamadhara, Shri Goswami Rupa Sanatana, Rupa Priya Mahajana, Jiva Raghunatha Hana, Tara Priya Kavi Krishna Dasa, Krishna Dasa Priya Bara, Narottama Seva Para, Tarapada Vishwanatha Asha, Vishwanatha Bhakta Sata, Baladeva Jagannatha, Tara Priya Shri Bhakti Vinoda, Mahabhagavata Bara, Shri Gora Kishora Bara, Hari Bhajanete Jara Moda, Ihara Paramahamsa, Gorangira Nija Bhamsha, Tadera Charane Mama Gati, Ami Seva Udasina, Mete Tridandhi Dina, Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So we see something interesting that below 9, there's 9a. So what does this mean? So traditionally, a Vaishnava poet will add their name at the end as the author of that bhajan. This is how we know which are the songs written by which acharya. But they will say it, of course, in a humble way, right? Usually stating themselves as a beggar or a servant of the servant. And this is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has done, right? But in order to glorify him and to glorify Srila Prabhupada, the 9a verse has been written. And this verse is, of course, it's speaking of his wonderful accomplishments as well as the accomplishments of Srila Prabhupada, and that actually speaks now of our entire disciplic succession up to Srila Prabhupada. Right? So that's this verse 9a is Shri Varshabhanavi Bhara Sada Sevya Seva Para Tahara Daita Dasanama Tara Pradhan Pacharako Shri Bhakti Vedanta Namo Patita Janete Doya Dhama. We'll read the translation quickly. In the beginning of creation, the science of devotional service was received by the four-headed Brahma from the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Devarshi Narada's understanding of this divine science was obtained from Brahma. The great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, who was empowered to compile the Vedic literatures, became a disciple of Devarshi Narada. Sri Padmadvacharya, the founder of the Shuddha Dvaita school of Vedanta philosophy, who visited Vyasadeva at Badrik Ashram in the 13th century to learn from him Vedanta philosophy, calls himself a servant of Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Purna Pragya Tirtha, who is Madhvacharya, is the guru and sole refuge of Padmanabha Tirtha. The other two principal disciples of Madhva are Nrihari Tirtha and Madhava Tirtha. Madhava Tirtha accepted the great Paramahamsa Akshobhya Tirtha as a disciple. The principal disciple of Akshobhya Tirtha was known as Jayatirtha. Jayatirtha's service was for his disciple Jnana Sindhu. Dayanidhi received the science of devotional service from Jnana Sindhu, and the servant of Dayanidhi was Vidyanidhi, also known as Vidyadiraj Tirtha. Rajendra Tirtha became a disciple of Vidyadiraj Tirtha. Rajendra Tirtha's servant was known as Jayadharma or Vijayadwaja Tirtha. In this way, you should properly understand this disciplic succession. The great sannyasi Sri Purushottam Tirtha received his knowledge in the service of his guru Vijayadwaja Tirtha or Jayadharma. The principal disciple of Purushottam Tirtha was Subramanya Tirtha. His servant was the great Vyasa Tirtha or Vyasaraya. Vyasa Tirtha's servant was Lakshmipati Tirtha, whose disciple was Madhavendra Puri Goswami. The chief disciple of Madhavendra Puri was Ishwara Puri, and two of his other disciples were the renowned incarnations of Godhead, Sri Nityananda and Advaita Acharya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the spiritual preceptor of all the worlds, made Ishwara Puri greatly fortunate by accepting him as his spiritual master. Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya is non-different from Sri Radha and Krishna and is the very life of those Vaishnavas who follow Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were the givers of great happiness to Vishwambar Sri Chaitanya. The great souls Jiva Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami became very dear to Rupa Goswami. Jiva Goswami was a disciple of Rupa Goswami, and Raghunath Das Goswami, a disciple of Advaita Acharya's disciple Yadvinanda Acharya, was accepted by Rupa and Sanatana as their third brother. Raghunath Das Goswami's beloved student was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Krishnadas Kaviraj was an intimate friend of Lokanath Goswami. They lived together in Vrindavan and always discussed the topics of Krishna with one another. Lokanath Goswami, a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit, had only one disciple whose name was Narottam Das. Narottam Das was always engaged in the service of his guru, and he also engaged himself in the service of his guru's intimate friend. Thus he became very dear to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. To serve the feet of Narottam Das Thakur was the only desire of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was the fourth Acharya in disciplic succession from Narottam Das. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was the Shiksha Guru or instructing spiritual master of Baladev Vidyabhushan, to whom he taught the precepts of Srimad Bhagavatam. Jagannath Das Babaji was a very prominent Acharya after Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan and was the beloved Shiksha Guru of Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's intimate friend and associate was the eminent Mahabhagavat Sri Gaurkishore Das Babaji, whose sole joy was found in Hari Bhajan. These great saintly Vaishnavas are all Paramahamsas or devotees of the highest order, and they are all part of Lord Gauranga's own spiritual family. Their holy feet are my refuge. I have no interest in devotional services, and I am a poor and lowly Judandi sannyasi named Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Right? So this is the concluding verse, and then our concluding verse in order to glorify Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada. The renowned Sri Varshabhanavi Dayata Das, which is the initiated name of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, is always engaged in the service of his spiritual master, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji. His foremost disciple preacher, Sri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, will spread the message of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world and is thus a reservoir of mercy and compassion for all fallen souls. Shri Radharanath ki, Shri Jagannath Baladev Swaji Maharani ki jai, Shri Shintai Gaura Hari ki jai, Shri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shintai Gaura Vinandi. Hari Om. So thank you all so much for your patience during our little longer class. And please join us next week. We're going to have more discussions on the pastimes of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We're going to start chapter 27. And we're going to also share more of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's bhajans and risings. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna everyone.